Like it seems that femme people just in general seem to be more interested in like social connection and unity and like facilitating like relationship. And unfortunately, like debates don't really cater to that very well. It usually
I'm just going to tell you what my experience is. Haven't been in the debate arena for a long time in these platforms now, which is that for the most part, women aren't very good at debating. Now, maybe there's a whole host of reasons why that may be, right? But it's just my opinion. But I noticed that you weren't terrible at it, right? So that was kind of interesting to me, because most of the time, just women aren't great at debating. Do you have any insight as to why you might think that is, or do you think that that's a terrible opinion and that women are generally pretty good at debating?
I think there's probably a lot of things. I think like in large part, there's going to be like it's probably multifaceted, right? There's the socialization to some extent where women broadly aren't encouraged in these types of spheres. They're just the way that we socialize men and women seems to be really different. And so it seems that women don't kind of naturally select for these spaces as often because of that. It also might do with actual like interest. Like it seems that femme people just in general seem to be more interested in like social connection and unity and like facilitating like relationship. And unfortunately, like debates don't really cater to that very well. It usually facilitates actual like interest. Like it seems that femme people just in general seem to be more interested in like social connection and unity and like facilitating like relationship. And unfortunately, like debates don't really cater to that very well. It usually facilitates lots of feelings and anger more than anything. So I think like in general, like more feminine personality people, which on average, like women tend to be the more feminine personality people, obviously, probably just don't select for it. And then there's also this weird, I think there's pros and cons in this space to being either gender. Women, I think in general, it feels like there's kind of extremes. It's either like you're a goddess, you're fucking based, literally you are incredible, or you're kind of a piece of like shit and we don't respect your opinions. And it seems like there's not a ton of space for women in between. But on the flip side, to be honest, like because we're women in like a very male dominated space, it's probably easier for us to get viewers and stuff like that. So there's kind of these trade-offs of like, I think there is a bit of a different ruler sometimes held to women, right? Especially like if I get really mad, it's going to come across really bitchy just because of the tone of my voice and stuff like that. Whereas men are going to come across much more like aggressive and angry. And so kind of some of the people don't seem to like kind of the bitchy or condescending approach in debates and stuff either. And so I think there's just extra like little barriers that I think women and femme personality people have to like kind of overcome to do well in this type of space.
But I mean, nobody likes it when a man's bitching either, right?
Yeah, but I would say like because of like just the tonal difference alone, like just the fact that like my voice is higher, right? If I get really shrill and intense, it just gets more naggy and shrill sounding. Whereas when you get really intense because your voice is deeper, it's just going to sound more like aggressive and angry. And so there's going to be kind of different critiques on that end. But me getting angry at people on panels is something I have to really finesse for sure. Otherwise, I get slammed pretty much immediately with you're being condescending, stuff like that.
So you think that one of the tricks that women could employ would be to mask their voice and make it a little bit deeper for debates so they don't sound so bitchy?
I think there's probably a mixture there. Probably as more women get into the space socially, we might just not respond as strongly to the higher pitched tones getting intense. Like we might just not see it as bitchy. We might just now start to see it as like women being more like pissed off, right? So I think like culturally, we might see shifts about that perception. I think in general, like really femme people, like debate tends to cater to masculine kind of engagement strategies. You tend to need to be more aggressive. To get a word in, you have to be willing to like jump in and interrupt people. You have to be kind of like talking big and loud. And so I think for a lot of like women, they have to kind of learn how to like healthily balance like certain like masculine pieces to like their personality that maybe isn't as natural. And I don't think there's as good of scripting for women about like how to, just like I don't think there's great scripting for men about like how to like tap into like a more femme part of their personality. I don't think there's as good of a script for women to tap into mask parts of their personality as well. And so we just need like more women in the space who kind of model that well, so that other women can be like, okay, this is how I can be kind of masculine and assertive without being like just like an asshole.
Interesting. I wonder though, like you say, there's not a lot of women in the space. There are a lot of women on Twitch. They're just mostly not doing debates or licking microphones and shit like that, right? And so they're doing different things than generally what the dudes are doing when it comes to the debatosphere and this kind of thing. Like you don't see a lot of men over there licking their microphones and doing that kind of thing. So it seems like they're kind of, both going towards things that they kind of naturally would go for. I guess I don't know, but I think it's kind of unfair to say that there's not a lot of women inside the space because they're repelled from it. I think that they just make a lot more money doing the mic licking stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, there is going to be more of an incentive. Like in general, people tend to want to pay to see femme and women doing sexual things. That
Mhm.
just is kind of a thing. So there's just money there. Debating is also really tough. Like in general, you need to like do your best to be consistent. You can be made a fool of really easily, and you're kind of like to some extent being vulnerable by like going out on a limb and like sharing what your positions are, and then having a bunch of people attack you, and you try to defend them and like come away not looking and feeling like a complete idiot. And I just think like um, in general, it seems that women don't seem to prefer going into spaces like that. And I don't blame them. Like, if you don't like being like roasted constantly, like, fair enough. Like, if that's not your cup of tea, that's not your cup of tea. But to act like I think that there's no barriers for women into the debate sphere, I think is not fully honest either, just because of what I said of that, like, kind of extreme ruler that seems to be held that we can benefit from a lot, but also can be pretty intense and harsh as well.
Yeah, let's get into that a little bit. So this ruler that you think is kind of barring women from coming in the debate sphere. So just to give you my perspective on it, I think that they don't go into the debate sphere because they suck at it. I'm just going to be as blunt as I can be. I don't know how else to talk, right? It's just the way I am. But that's why I think they generally don't get into it. I don't think that there's type of misogyny that keeps them out, as Twitch is a very, very progressive, very left wing space for sure. There's maybe two or three of us right wingers that are left in it at all. The rest of them are libertarians. So I don't understand how there would be this huge barrier for women coming in when there's so many feminist advocates who are males all over the space who seem to be encouraging it. Other than maybe you're just saying that there's some sort of expectation that you think is built into them for why they can't. I'm not sure I understand exactly.
That's fair. So I guess the idea of like, do women suck at debate? Potentially, but we have to ask like, okay, let's just say that I'm willing to assume that that's true, which I'm not sure that I agree with that. But let's say we assume that that's true. We also have to understand why is that the case, right? Like nobody can point to some like biological fact of being like, this is precisely why women suck at debate, right? There isn't anything like that. So then we have to start looking at kind of social dynamic factors of being like, okay, is it because of our socialization of women? Is it because of their personality proclivities? Is it because of like the type of spheres of just like genderized roles that we make for these individuals? Like, what is it that's contributing to them sucking? Because as far as like, things that we would expect would predict skill at debate, like IQ, kind of verbosity, women don't seem to differ at all from men. And so there obviously is other factors going on. And so as far as like women entering the sphere, I would agree. I don't think there's actual an obstacle for entering the sphere. I think there is a huge obstacle for doing well in the sphere for women because of multiple factors like socialization, etc. That kind of harsh ruler that I've talked about. And so I think like staying in this sphere for a long term where you're dealing with probably the same level of roasting as other people, maybe a bit more. I'm not sure. It's hard to compare those things. But then you're also dealing with like a lot of unsolicited sexual off advances, people making you uncomfortable regularly because of like sexuality when you're like, I'm in a debate sphere, like that's clearly not what I'm doing, stuff like that. I mean, the amount of times that I've like just like gotten unsolicited offers of like asking people to sit on like for me to sit on their face and stuff like that. Like I can totally understand for some women why they're like, yeah, not interested in dealing with all of this extra stuff that comes with being in this sphere.
So I think I can at least grasp. I mean, not totally because I have no idea what it's like to just get constantly pummeled with offers of sex. I know that women go through that all the time. So I think I'm willing to grant that as being something that is unique that they have to deal with in the debate sphere, right? But I also think that when you say something like there's nothing really biologically that we can point to that would say that women suck at debate, I don't know if that's true. I think I'll accept for now that it's true because you said it, and I don't really have anything to refute it. But I'm not sure that I'm not sure that that's true. I think that generally speaking, women go towards things that they enjoy, and men go towards things that they enjoy. And I just don't. I don't think that most of them give a shit about debating with other people at all. I think I think they just have like almost zero interest in it, and that's probably why you see so few of them in the sphere.
Mhm.
Not because there's this bizarre ruler that bars entry, and it's a multifaceted problem and all that. Yeah, I think it's probably just simple, and just like most of them don't give a shit.